The call came at 6:52 a.m. on a gray Tuesday, the kind of winter morning where the sky presses low and the snow drifts sideways like it has nowhere else to be. I was already awake, standing at my kitchen counter in Mississauga, warming my hands around a chipped ceramic mug while the kettle hissed behind me. The phone buzzed against the wood, and when I glanced down, my stomach tightened. My brother's name, Mark. We hadn't spoken in almost a month, not since the argument during our last visit to our mother's care facility, where voices were lowered but tempers were not. "Elliot," he said when I answered. His voice was slow, measured, carrying that artificial gravity that always meant something unpleasant was coming. "I have some bad news." I leaned against the counter. "What kind of bad news?" "There's no easy way to say this. Mom passed away last night, peacefully, in her sleep." The mug slipped from my hand and cracked against the sink. Hot coffee splashed onto my wrist, but I barely felt it. "What? No. I was going to see her today. When did this happen?" Mark didn't answer the question. "I've already made arrangements. The funeral's on Friday." Friday, 3 days away. "And Elliot," he continued, his voice shifting from solemn to clipped, "about Mom's estate. The will leaves everything to me. The house, the cottage up north, her investments, all of it. You're not named. I'd advise you not to contest it." I opened my mouth, but the line went dead. For a long moment I stood there staring at my phone, my pulse pounding in my ears. My mother was dead, and the first thing my brother had done was threaten me. Something felt wrong. Not emotionally wrong, logically wrong. "My name is Elliot Barnes. I'm 63 years old, a retired transportation engineer who spent 4 decades designing highways and bridges across southern Ontario. My wife, Laura, died 4 years ago after a long fight with ovarian cancer. We had one son, Nathan, now 30, living in Halifax and working as an environmental consultant. After Laura died, my world narrowed. I filled it with volunteering, routine, and my mother. My brother Mark is 5 years younger. He went into commercial real estate, married Denise, and had 2 kids. On paper, he looked successful. In reality, he was always chasing the next deal, always overextended. I'd overheard arguments at family gatherings, hushed conversations about loans and missed payments. Denise worked overtime as a physiotherapist to keep them afloat. Our mother, Margaret Barnes, was 86, a retired high school literature teacher, sharp-witted and stubborn in the best way. She lived alone in Richmond Hill until about 10 months ago when Mark insisted she needed help. He convinced her to sign power of attorney papers so he could manage her finances and appointments. Within weeks, everything changed. Suddenly, Mom had advanced dementia. Mark moved her into Oak Ridge Manor, saying it was no longer safe for her to live alone. When I visited for the first time, my chest tightened in disbelief. The woman who used to beat me at Scrabble and quote Shakespeare from memory sat slumped in a chair, eyes unfocused. She didn't recognize me. Her words came out slurred, disconnected. "This doesn't make sense," I told her physician, Dr. Alan Foster. He gave me a calm, rehearsed smile. Cognitive decline can accelerate rapidly at her age. It never sat right with me. I kept visiting, 3 times a week. I talked to her even when she didn't respond. I held her hand. Mark showed up occasionally, always rushed, always glancing at his watch. Now, after that phone call, unease hardened into certainty. I called Oak Ridge Manor immediately. "I'm calling about my mother, Margaret Barnes. I was told she passed away last night." There was a pause, keys clicking. "I'm sorry, sir, but your mother is alive. She's in the dining room having breakfast." The room tilted. "Please," I said, lowering my voice, "don't mention this call to anyone, especially not my brother." I hung up and dialed Nathan. "Dad? What's going on?" His voice thick with sleep. "Your uncle just told me Grandma died. She didn't." Silence. Then, "That's serious. That's fraud, Dad." "I know, and whatever Mark's planning, it's already in motion." By noon, I was sitting across from Victor Liu, a lawyer I'd worked with years earlier. "This is criminal," Victor bluntly said, "but suspicion is not enough. You'll need proof." That afternoon, I hired a private investigator named Renee Calder. She listened without interrupting, her pen moving steadily. "How long has he had power of attorney?" 10 months. "And before that?" "She was volunteering, driving, completely lucid." Renee nodded. "Give me 48 hours. That evening, I drove to Oak Ridge Manor without calling ahead. Mom sat by the window, watching the snow collect on the hedges. She looked thinner, frailer. But when I said her name, her eyes flickered. For just a second, I saw something sharp and aware beneath the fog. Then a nurse walked in, and the moment vanished. I left with my heart pounding, the uneasy thought growing louder with every step. Mark hadn't just lied. He was trying to erase her. Renee called the next morning, just after 9. "Elliot, you should sit down." I was already at the kitchen table, staring at the crack in the wall Laura had always meant to repaint. "I'm sitting." "In the last 8 months," she said, "your brother transferred roughly $300,000 from your mother's accounts into his own. He sold the cottage near Parry Sound to a numbered company. I'm still confirming ownership, but all signs point back to him. He's also been using her credit cards regularly." My stomach clenched. "And the doctor?" There was a brief pause. "Dr. Alan Foster and your brother went to university together, same graduating class. They've stayed in touch for decades." I closed my eyes. Renee continued, "Based on the prescriptions, your mother has been heavily sedated. Antipsychotics, benzodiazepines, enough to make a healthy adult appear cognitively impaired. So the dementia? Likely exaggerated, possibly fabricated." I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking. I was halfway through calling Victor when my phone buzzed again. Oak Ridge Manor. "Mr. Barnes," a nurse said, "your brother signed your mother out for a few hours, said she needed fresh air." "When?" I asked sharply. "About an hour ago." I drove there in under 15 minutes, snow spraying behind my tires. Mark's black SUV was gone. I called him, no answer. Again, voicemail. 3 hours later, they returned. Mark helped Mom out of the car, her body slumped, her steps unsteady. Anger flared through me. "You said she died," I said as he passed me in the hallway. He scoffed. "I misspoke. She had an episode. You lied." "I'm her power of attorney," he said quietly. "Be careful, Elliot." That night, as I sat in my car in the parking lot, my phone rang. Blocked number. "Hello?" A whisper answered. "Elliot." My breath caught. "Who is this?" "It's me," the voice said. "Your mother." "That's not possible," I said, my heart racing. "Come to my room tonight, after 10. Don't tell anyone." The line went dead. At 10:30 p.m., I slipped inside through the side entrance. The hall was quiet, lights dimmed. When I opened Mom's door, she was sitting upright in bed. Her eyes were clear. "Lock the door," she said. My knees nearly buckled. "Mom!" She smiled. "Sit down. We don't have much time." I stared at her, searching for confusion. There was none. "I've been pretending for months," she said gently. "For months." My head spun. "Why?" "To see who would care for me when I seemed useless, and to protect myself." She explained everything. The trust she'd set up before signing POA, the recordings, the documents hidden with Victor. "I wanted to believe Mark wouldn't do this," she said softly, "but I needed to know." Tears blurred my vision. "I scared me to death." "I'm sorry," she said, squeezing my hand, "but now we finish this." The next 2 days were a blur. Police were quietly looped in, cameras installed, nurses vetted. Mark came again Thursday night. He brought papers, then a syringe. I watched the footage later, my stomach turning as he told her it was medicine. Friday came. The funeral home was full, flowers everywhere. Mark stood at the podium, praising himself as a devoted son. When I stood up, silence fell. "Where's Mom's body?" I asked. The doors opened. She walked in, alive, and everything Mark had built collapsed in a single breath. The room exploded into sound. Gasps, cries, chairs scraping back as people stood in disbelief. Someone near the aisle let out a sob that sounded half like laughter, half like shock. My mother moved slowly but steadily down the center aisle, one hand gripping a walker, the other resting lightly on the arm of a uniformed police officer. Her posture was straight, her eyes were sharp, alive in a way no one in that room had seen for nearly a year. Mark stared at her as if she were a ghost made of flesh and bone. His mouth opened, then closed. Denise clutched his arm, her face draining of color. "Mom," he whispered, this isn't funny." "I agree," she said calmly, stopping directly in front of him. "It isn't." The officer stepped forward. "Mark Barnes, you are under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, theft, and attempted financial exploitation." Mark lunged backward, knocking over a chair as he tried to run. He made it 3 steps before being tackled to the floor. His children screamed. Denise collapsed into the seat, shaking. As they handcuffed him, he twisted toward my mother. "I'm your son," he shouted. "I needed that money." She looked down at him, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. "If you had asked," she said, her voice steady despite the tears, "I would have helped you. Instead, you treated me like I was already dead." The legal aftermath dragged on for months. Evidence poured in, video footage, audio recordings, bank transfers, prescriptions signed without proper evaluations. Faced with it all, Mark pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years and ordered to repay everything he'd taken. His license was revoked, his marriage dissolved. Dr. Foster lost his medical license. There was no sympathy from the board. My mother moved out of Oak Ridge Manor within weeks. She sold the old house and bought a small condo near mine. We fell into a routine: Tuesday dinners, Sunday walks when the weather allowed. She laughed more. She slept better. She began volunteering at an elder advocacy center, speaking openly about power of attorney abuse, about how easily trust could be weaponized. One snowy evening a year later, we sat on my porch, wrapped in blankets, watching flakes drift down under the porch light. "Do you regret it?" I asked quietly. She considered the question for a long time. "I regret that I had to test my own children," she said, "but I don't regret learning the truth." I nodded. "You taught me what integrity looks like." She smiled and squeezed my hand. "And you showed me what love looks like when there's nothing in it for you." Inside, my phone buzzed. Nathan calling for our weekly chat. Life moving forward. She looked out at the snow, her voice soft. "The saddest part is that greed cost your brother everything, and all he ever had to do was be honest." I didn't answer. I just sat with her, grateful for the quiet, for the years we still had. Family, I'd learned, isn't proven by blood or inheritance. It's proven by showing up when it's hard, when there's nothing in it for you, when love is the only currency left. And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is pretend to be helpless just long enough to reveal who truly isn't.